She didn't leave because she stopped caring. She left because she felt something she didn't fully understand, and instead of facing it, she ran from it. That's what makes this cycle so confusing. One day, she's all in. The next, she's distant, cold, and different. Just when you start to accept it, move forward, and breathe without her, she shows back up. Texting, liking your stories, reaching out as if nothing happened. And you're left wondering, what changed? Was it regret? Loneliness? Did she finally realize your worth? Here's the uncomfortable truth. She didn't come back because she suddenly figured it all out. She came back because she felt your absence more strongly than her own confusion. This is where most people fall into a trap. They think her return is the resolution, the sign that things are better now. But it's not about whether she leaves or comes back. It's about what you do when she does. Love without stability becomes a pattern, and patterns, when left unchecked, become emotional loops. In these loops, your worth is questioned, your time is wasted, and your heart is left constantly waiting for her to make up her mind. This is how she trains your nervous system to associate affection with unpredictability, feeling high when she returns and empty when she disappears. The longer you stay in that loop, the more you lose sight of the one person who never left you, yourself. So before you react to her return, before you welcome her back with open arms, you need to understand one thing. Her coming back doesn't mean she's ready. It just means she's not ready to lose you. There's a difference. How you respond now, what you tolerate, what you ask, and what you observe will determine whether this becomes closure or another cycle. When she returns, it's rarely about resolution. It's about comfort, and not yours, hers. Her mind doesn't process time the same way yours does. While you were trying to move forward, trying to find peace, she was circling back emotionally to the last place she felt stable, even if she's the one who shattered it. Women often leave not when they're certain, but when they're overwhelmed by feelings they can't explain, expectations they don't want to confront, or fears that what they're experiencing is too good to be true. So when she walked away, it wasn't always about you doing something wrong. It was about her not being ready to receive something real. But here's the part most people miss. When she comes back, she's not just looking to feel you again. She's looking to see if you're still the same. She wants to know if the door is still open, if the comfort still exists, if she still has access. And if you offer that access too quickly, without clarity, without standards, she feels safe, but she doesn't feel inspired. Why? Because you didn't grow in her absence. You just waited, and women can sense that. They may not say it out loud, but they feel the difference between a person who stood still and one who evolved. That's why her return isn't always a victory. Sometimes it's a test, not a test of your love for her, but a test of your love for yourself. Have you grown? Did her leaving awaken something in you? Did it make you reflect, reset, rebuild? Or did you simply pause your life, hoping she'd eventually circle back? Because when she sees someone who's become stronger in her absence, calmer, clearer, more self-respecting, it creates a tension inside her that she doesn't know how to name. And that tension is attraction. Not because you ignored her, not because you played a game, but because your growth became louder than her confusion. And now, she's not sure if she's returning to someone who still wants her, or to someone who's already outgrown the version of her that left. That uncertainty is exactly where your power lives. Here's what you need to understand. Her coming back isn't just about missing you. It's about checking if the door is still open. she's not always returning with commitment in her heart. She's returning to reassure herself that the safety net still exists. Because in her mind, as long as you're still available, she doesn't have to face the consequences of losing you fully. She gets the emotional comfort without the emotional responsibility. This is where many people slip up. They see her return as a resolution when it's actually a reset of her control. You think things are finally going to change, that she's seen your worth, now that she's coming back with clarity. But really, she might just be coming back because she's uncomfortable with the silence, not ready to be alone, not ready to admit that she made a decision she's not proud of. She's not necessarily coming back to love you. She might be coming back to avoid facing herself. And if you rush in to comfort her, if you pick up where things left off without accountability, without realignment, you become part of the very pattern that drains you. She gets the relief, and you carry the weight. But a person who's done the work doesn't respond to her presence. They respond to her intentions. They don't ask, "Why is she back?" They ask, "What's different this time?" Because access to you now comes with standards, not conditions to punish her, not hoops to make her jump through, but clarity about what you're building, what you need, and what you won't compromise on. That's what separates a person who repeats the cycle from one who breaks it. When she comes back and finds that you're no longer operating from the same emotional space, that your validation isn't tied to her attention anymore, something inside her shifts. Because now, she's not just returning to a person, she's returning to a boundary. And boundaries don't beg, they don't break down, they filter. So the next time she reaches out, asks how you've been, or acts like nothing happened, don't rush to feel flattered, slow down, pay attention. Is this a person who's done her own work? Is she walking in with clarity or just fear? Is she meeting you at the level you've grown into? Or is she hoping you're still the version of you that waited? Because a person who truly sees your value won't just come back. They'll come back differently. And if she doesn't, you won't have to push her away. She'll realize on her own that the door she once walked out of no longer leads back to the same person. She won't tell you this, but part of her return is driven by curiosity, not just about you, but about how much of you still belongs to her. It's not malicious, it's not always conscious, but it's real. She remembers what it felt like to be wanted by you, the attention, the consistency, the way you used to drop everything just to make her feel seen, even when she didn't know what she wanted. You were certain about her. You showed up. Now, as she reappears in your life, she's quietly scanning for evidence, not just that you miss her, but that your identity is still somehow tethered to her presence. She wants to know, did she still leave a mark? Is the door really closed? Will you fold the way you did before? But here's what throws her off balance. You don't flinch. You're calm, kind, unbothered, not cold, not bitter, just grounded. And that's what disorients her. Because now she doesn't know where she stands. Before, she had leverage. She could come and go, test and pull back, because you made it easy. But now she's facing something she didn't expect. A person who doesn't need to be chased, doesn't need closure, doesn't need permission to keep growing. You see, it's not your silence that gets to her. It's your stability. It's the way you're no longer reactive, the way you've stopped explaining yourself, the way your attention has become sacred, selective, earned. And this is when the emotional tables turn. Suddenly, you're not the one waiting, she is. Waiting to be seen again, waiting for a response that feels familiar, waiting for the version of you she left behind. But he's not here anymore. And as much as she may want the comfort of the old dynamic, she's now standing in front of a person she doesn't fully recognize, because he's grown past the version of himself that tolerated emotional instability. And that's not something you can fake. That's not a line you throw in to appear strong. That's something she feels. She can sense the shift. And when she realizes that the control she used to have no longer exists, that's when the regret begins to rise. Not because she lost you in a dramatic breakup, but because you changed without needing her to validate your growth. You became the kind of person who doesn't chase closure because he already found his peace. And that's when she realizes she didn't lose the person she left. She lost the person she never really got to know because she walked away before he fully became him. By the time she realizes what she had, you're no longer in the same emotional place where she left you. And that realization, it's not just painful for her, it's humbling. Because when a person circles back, expecting the past dynamic, what they're really hoping for is proof that they still matter, that they still have emotional weight in your life, that no matter how far they strayed, you'd be right where they left you. But when they return to a person who no longer seeks validation, who's found direction, who's built a life without pausing for their confusion, they're not met with familiarity. They're met with something far more disarming, a person at peace. And peace, to someone who used to have power over you, isn't just confusing, it's confronting. Because now they have to sit with the reality that your world didn't fall apart in their absence, that their silence didn't break you. You healed in ways they never imagined you would. You stopped trying to prove your worth to someone who wasn't ready to receive it. And that quiet strength, it lingers. It stays with them longer than any text, any words, or any emotional plea ever could. Because it sends a message they can't unhear. I'm not mad, I'm not chasing, I'm just not yours anymore. Not because of resentment, but because your self-respect grew louder than your need for answers. This is the shift. This is the moment everything changes. Not when they return, but when their return no longer changes you. And now, you're not waiting. You're not explaining. You're not asking if she means it this time. You're watching, observing, and living. The more you embody that calm, focused energy, the less space her confusion has to operate. Because growth creates boundaries, not the kind you build out of pain, but the kind you build out of clarity. And that's what finally makes her see, not just what she lost, but what she's no longer entitled to. You were never supposed to chase her back. You were supposed to chase the version of yourself you lost while trying to keep her. Because when a person leaves, it feels like rejection. But in reality, it's often an invitation. An invitation to rediscover everything you forgot about who you are while trying to prove yourself to someone who couldn't even see you clearly. She thought you'd spiral, that you'd unravel, start questioning your worth, start trying to fix things. But instead, you did something far more powerful. You didn't break, you rebuilt. That's the twist no one sees coming. The person who used to apologize for being too much becomes the person who refuses to be less. The person who used to wait around for them to figure it out becomes the one everyone else has to keep up with. And the beautiful part? You didn't grow to prove them wrong. You grew because staying the same would have meant staying small. You finally realized that the love you were giving away so freely was always meant to start with you. Now, they're not sure what hurts more, losing you, or realizing you were never the one who needed to be chased. You were the one they needed to catch up to. That's why they check your stories. That's why they send the occasional, "Hey, how have you been?" Not because they want to start over, but because they want to see if any part of you still lives in the past they abandoned. But you don't. You've evolved beyond it, and now your silence isn't about being petty. It's not a tactic. It's a result. The result of finally valuing your peace more than their presence. And when you reach that place, something beautiful happens. You stop trying to get them back, and you start attracting everything that reflects the person you've become. You no longer fear losing someone, because you finally became someone you refuse to lose. That's when everything changes. Not when they realize your worth, but when you do. You know what breaks them more than your silence? It's the realization that you didn't wait. While they were testing, pulling away, disappearing to find themselves, you weren't standing by the door hoping they'd change their mind. You were outgrowing the person who once gave them every part of themselves without a second thought. You weren't bitter. You weren't petty. You just evolved. And that's what eats at them more than anything, because now you've become someone they can no longer predict. Unpredictability in someone who used to orbit around them, that's unsettling. You no longer seek their attention. You don't bend when they check in with vague messages. You don't light up at breadcrumbs, because the version of you who used to settle for those scraps, he's gone. The person you are now is focused, selective, not out of ego, but out of respect for how far you've come. And deep down, they see it, in the way you don't rush to reply, in the way your energy no longer clings to their validation, in the way your peace seems so intact that their presence feels optional. That's the shift they didn't expect. You didn't just stop missing them. They never thought you'd stop needing them. And when that happens, when a person realizes they can no longer emotionally move you the way they used to, that's when regret hits harder than rejection ever could. But this is the part that matters most for you. Don't make them regret your absence out of revenge. Make them regret losing access to someone who finally showed up for themselves. Because that's the kind of growth no apology can undo. And listen, this isn't just about them. It's about how you handle the next person who tries to enter your world. Because your peace, your energy, your presence, it's expensive now. And not everyone can afford it. So if they come back, look deeper than their words. Watch their consistency. Observe their effort. And most importantly, check in with the person you've become. Because the person you are now doesn't chase the past. They build futures. And sometimes that means leaving behind the very person you once thought you couldn't live without. Because you finally realized you can't afford to lose yourself again. If you've come this far, I know you're one of the rare ones. The ones who don't just watch. You listen, you absorb, you grow. So drop a comment saying, "My growth is not reversible." Let the world know you're done shrinking to fit inside anyone's comfort zone. And when you're ready to keep going, click on the next video. I'll be right there with you. Let's keep leveling up, one lesson at a time.